This video concludes the Gibson and pressed picks for the period approximately 1940 to 1950, and that's a general rule. It's not a hard rule. Some of these could have come from the late 30s into the early 60s, and the same is true with the previous group of impressed Gibsons. Some of them may have gone into the 40s as well. But just as a general rule, this is the 1940 to 50 period. After 1950, printing became much more popular and in widespread use. So you'll see here, we do not have the diversity of shapes or celluloid styles that we saw in the earlier group. 1940s, something significant happened in our nation, and that was World War II. Manufacturing and production was called to use for that effort primarily, and I don't know if that influenced Gibson to select what we call tagger stripe celluloid. For obvious reasons, you could see the striping here, and it just has that name. Sometimes it doesn't appear to be tagger stripe. We call it tagger stripe. And these were made by the manufacturer in the Chicago area, the tagger stripe. And the reason I say that is predominantly all picks that we see in tagger stripe, a Maxwell and an entire pure picks category, which means no logos, come in tagger stripe. Now, obviously, they had other celluloids that they used, but less frequently. Gibson may have had other catalogs or at least picks made during that period, but they're not shown here. We do have a few variations. Almost everything here is a straight logo except for this one. This does have an arch logo, and we see it right there. And this is in what we call a wheat straw variation. Pretty boring group, relatively speaking, and you probably see I have a lot of shapes that are the same, and you've seen that in some other videos too. The reason for this is obvious variations. If you take a look at this white pick here and this pick here with a cream color, they're obviously different, and there is a difference in color here. So if I have duplicates, shapes showing, there is a reason, but that may not be so apparent and obvious. Usually some variation that I was attracted to and decided to keep. Just give you a close-up of the logos here. Gibson straight logo. Same with the white. Straight logo. So, a few other details about these. As we said, there are far fewer shapes. And the corrugation is now different. This is another type of corrugation that appeared widely on tagger stripe picks or those picks made from the Midwest. And I say it in that way because we really haven't identified who the maker was in the Midwest, but we see a clear distinction. They copied a number of DeAndrea shapes. Fortunately, they didn't copy them perfectly, maybe one or two with the exception of this 59 over here. This is a DeAndrea shape from their first catalog that we have, a whole catalog from 1927, and that's a very early shape. It appears DeAndrea did not popularize that shape thereafter, but picks continued to be made and distributed, usually in the pure variety, that is, with no marking on them at all. But Gibson did make that shape at all, as well, I should say, and probably from the Chicago manufacturer that copied some of the shapes that DeAndrea used. Later on, we'll get to see a huge variety of shapes in the tagger stripe celluloid that we see here, and it is quite remarkable. So those are all pure picks. Do not discount the fact that picks don't have a name on them. That would be a huge mistake. You're missing a big part of history, and some of the most beautiful picks we're going to see have no name on them whatsoever. So not a whole lot going on here. This here was another abandoned DeAndrea shape here. Again, used widely by the Chicago manufacturer. DeAndrea occasionally used tagger stripe celluloid, but very, very, very rarely. So I'm glad you're here with me. This pick at the end here has been custom cut, and it has a Gibson logo. And this is probably your early 40s, right, or early 40s, late 50s, right here for these two. So the white pick also has the same type of corrugation that we saw earlier with this tortoise colored celluloid that we call Tiger Stripe. And it was noted that that's a different type of impression, and that type of corrugation also seems to be the one that was in popular use coming out of Chicago. Chicago was huge at the turn of the last century, 1900s. Prior to that and after that, a lot of instrument manufacturing going on there. We know Gibson was there. A lot of large companies like Wurlitzer were making organs, Lyon and Healy. So a lot going on there. And I'm sure some plectrophile in the future is going to find out who that maker was, because they do play a role, not a significant role as DeAndrea did in pick production, but obviously they do have a role here. So look forward to you in future videos. In the next video, we're going to be featuring some really unique early French pure picks. I hope to see you then. This is Joe from Playmore. Bye-bye.